Welcome to Slash Bash, where today I am bringing you another Entitled Parents Reddit video. In our first story, I know who put glass in your ice cream and it certainly wasn't the staff. Let's jump right in. Many years ago now, I had taken my friends out to dinner at a friendly sort of restaurant, if you catch my drift. They served greasy American food and a whole bunch of ice cream. My friends were a couple with a baby, and we were all seated one table over from a group with a family that consisted of both parents and I want to say 3 kids who were so off the wall they seemed more like 5, plus 1 infant. Clearly, this family instilled discipline using loud volume at home, which doesn't really work in a public setting like a restaurant. The kids were bloody obnoxious and very loud all through their meal, so the dad decrees that only the parents will be getting ice cream because they're the only ones who behaved. I will say in the parents' defense that they did try to keep control over their hellions. Lots of glares promising this discussion isn't over, that particular parental tone one has when one would really love to yell but can't because they're in public, and once the ice cream has hit the fan, even those aren't coming close to restraining the kids any longer. They've taken their protest mobile, baby. Now they're running around the restaurant being a gigantic pain in the butt. One of them actually bumps the high chair my friend's infant was in, and Monkey, the baby, went from peacefully snoozing to furious at the whole world. At this point, the mother ups her game and starts whacking her glass sundae dish with her metal spoon to get the kids' attention, and using the bell-like tone to draw the kids' attention so they know what's coming if they don't get back and sit down. It works, and the kids eventually come back and the mom takes a bite of ice cream. Then, she gets a look on her face like she went to fart and got a surprise and claps both hands over her mouth and runs to the bathroom. She comes out a few minutes later and whispers to the father what happened, and at that point, the few frayed bits of control he had over his temper just dissolve. He starts screaming bloody murder about the restaurant trying to kill the mother, how he's going to get this whole place shut down. The waitress comes over to see what exactly is going on, and she's blown aside and left sobbing in his dust. He is slowed briefly by the manager, and the guy homes in on the poor sap scooping ice cream, grabs the front of his uniform and actually lifts him up off the floor with one hand, which I didn't actually think was a thing people could do, but the father was a large man and the poor kid scooping ice cream was rather scrawny. 2 other guys from the kitchen see what's happening and grab the father because holy smokes, this isn't a movie. They're at least successful in preventing the father from punching the poor kid, and the imminent violence ceases when the mother shouts, "I'm bleeding, we need to go." The father drops the kid, shakes off the 2 dudes who'd grabbed him, and the whole family skedaddles while promising to sue before the police arrive. The waitress, the manager, and the kitchen folk all have a brief huddle trying to figure out what the hell all that was about. The father was furious enough to sound incoherent, and no one knew why the mother was bleeding. The police arrive at the front of the restaurant, and the manager goes out to talk to them while our poor waitress gathers what few shards of dignity she has and asks how we'd like to pay for our meal. I go to hand her my debit card and say, "That was something else, huh? I don't know how that guy didn't realize she was the one who broke her own dish and put glass in her ice cream." The waitress freezes when she hears this, my card in hand, and asks me to repeat myself. I do, and she zips over to the manager and the cops who walk over to me. I relate everything I saw, and the manager thanks me to an uncomfortable extent and asks for contact information just in case they decide to sue. I get my card and the bill and found out the manager had comped our entire meal and given us each a free ice cream card to be redeemed whenever. About a year later, I actually got a few phone calls from lawyers on both sides. The plaintiff's counsel sounded morose after hearing from me, and the defense's counsel sounded positively gleeful. Story number 2. My entitled mother insisted on being in the middle of everything for our first child. This occurred along with the birth of my oldest son, which has been a while ago. My mother was always challenging. She was always nuts. Everyone that got to know her would say she was nuts. High-functioning crazy, but in a fly-off-the-handle, angry, stubborn, controlling, type A hateful, and a couple times a month violent kind of way. Most of the time she was just a little bit crazy, and as long as you didn't challenge her make-believe world, usually things were okay. But I survived getting to 16, then I moved out. I can honestly say there are much worse mothers out there. Mine was just /sigh. My dad is probably the top 10 most self-centered person I know, with a fairly good sprinkling of jerk thrown in. I've met a few people that were more self-centered, but I've always used my dad as the standard for world's most self-centered person. My parents together, OMG. Somehow, they stayed married. I'm not sure how, but they did. My mom hated my dad, but wouldn't leave him. My dad was somehow afraid of leaving my mom because she would own everything he had, and money is more important than anything. And I think he was just afraid of getting divorced, so they stayed married. When I was in my mid-30s, my wife and I had our first child. My wife is fully aware of how much of a handful my mother is, so we discussed it, and she didn't want to rock any boats, but she also didn't want to have to deal with her mother-in-law while she was also dealing with our first child. On top of this, our house is small, so whenever my parents visit, it's people stepping on people. I've always known that if bad news needed to be delivered to my mother, it had to come from me. My mother could be mad at me all she wanted. I don't care. Eventually, she'd get over it because I'm her son. But if she ever got mad at anyone else, that was it. She hated that person forever. And if my mother ever did decide that my wife should be the target of her hate, that would end my relationship with my parents altogether. Better that she be mad at me. One of my mother's triggers is babies. Yep, when it comes to little kids, she kinda loses her mind more than usual. So with all of this in mind, about 3 months before my son was born, I called my parents and let them know the plans I had. First, we'd get them a room at a hotel close by for the duration of their stay. Second, because this was all new to my wife and I, we'd be taking it easy in the evenings and mornings. No 6 a.m. visits. Please wait until 9 a.m. before coming over. Please don't stay late at night. That was it. 2 requests. We did the same for both sets of grandparents, for whom both sides this would be their first grandchild. My in-laws are awesome. They had no issues with the request whatsoever, and my mother-in-law actually is very helpful to have around. When I called my parents, my mom picked up the phone. I explained our requests, there was some back and forth, and I stated they were non-negotiable. My mom lost it. The most hate-filled screaming phone call I've ever had, with her or anyone else. I got called everything she dared call me, and I just ignored it. I don't even remember what all she called me because I expected it and I didn't care. She slammed the phone down on the table and left me sitting there on the phone while she screamed at my father. About a minute later, my dad gets on the phone, and this is the part of the call I remember. "Sho, you need to let us stay at your house." No. I realize she thinks she's helping, but she isn't. She's more work to deal with than the baby will be. "I'm asking you to let that be. If you don't, your mother is going to be impossible to live with." No. I'll have my hands full, and I don't need her here making things more difficult. He hung up there and then. No goodbye, no nothing, just click. We didn't speak again for 2 years. It was a very peaceful 2 years, and I never felt bad about it. Not even once. Would do the same thing all over again. Husbands, give unconditional love to your wives. Think of your wife first, then see if you can figure out how to make everyone else happy. If you can't make everyone happy, it is what it is. This is John from /bash. Thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed the video and want to be the first to know when the next one drops, then subscribe and click on the notifications bell so that YouTube will actually let you see my videos. We would love for you to drop a like, share it with your friends, and we will see you in the next one.